It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice. Empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk with no chaser. 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 She provides a platform of growth and gives the dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show, again on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeartRadio station. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harrison. I am so glad to be with you this evening. Tonight we are having a conversation that a lot of families and people don't want to have, which is about the medical needs that have to be addressed sometimes towards the end of our loved ones' lives. So to help me have this conversation, I have Ms. Terry McElrath. Did I get it?
You did. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And Ms. Natasha White. I got that.
Hi, yes. How you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you. So Terry owns her own respite care company. I need for you to explain to people what that means.
Yes, ma'am. So care visits, actually, we seek to do two things within the community. First is to improve patient outcomes by conducting well-being checks. So we need to know that our family members are okay, even when we can't be there to check on them. And the second thing is to provide some form of relief for our busy caregivers. So as we know, as our community is aging, there's more pressures falling on us as caregivers, and we need to come together as a community and provide that much needed support. So the second thing is to provide some kind of respite relief or a break for our busy caregivers.
And Natasha, you are an LMT, Health and Wellness Consultant. Tell the audience what that means.
Okay. My name is Natasha White. LMT is licensed massage therapist. I wanted to do more than just massage therapy. I wanted to help incorporate wellness into the lives of caregivers. And as Ms. Terry said, caregivers can be a little bit burned out and stressed out. So I want to help them to incorporate their wellness in the midst of caring for their loved one so that they can not be so burned out, but also take care of themselves so they can also better take care of the ones that they're caring for. And being a caregiver myself, I definitely can relate to being burned out, being stressed out, being frustrated, and just having that opportunity to know that they can have the help that they need and they can do it without so much work to go into taking care of their wellness. It could be real simple. That's my process. I really want to make it simple for them to care for themselves as well.
Tonight's conversation is definitely about caregiver burnout and signs of the burnout. And if we have time, we're going to get into how to assess a home situation as far as a nursing home placement. We have now a situation where the baby boomers, which the age of baby boomers is approximately born from 1945, I think, to about 1965.
Yes.
So they are a large generation, and they are now turning 65 at the rate of 10,000 a day in this country. Now, let me give you the top 10 concerns health-wise for baby boomers. Number 1, type 2 diabetes. Number 2, heart disease. Number 3, cancer. Number 4 is depression. Number 5, visual problems, going not just from the cornea issues, but macular degeneration, which can possibly lead to blindness. Number 6, Alzheimer's. Number 7, arthritis and joint replacement issues. Number 8, osteoporosis, which is a thinning of the bones. So we're looking at possible breakage of the bones, which also impacts your quality of life and your ability to get around. Number 9, repeated bouts of flu and pneumonia. And number 10, the sandwich generation stress, which for those of you who are unfamiliar with that term, sandwich generation, it is people that have elderly parents and children, be they young children or adult children that still need your assistance. So you are sandwiched between two groups of people that need your help.
Yes.
So knowing that you have some baby boomers that are having sandwich generation stress, and B, you have some people that are going to be caring for people that are baby boomers, or like my mother's generation is, if I recall correctly, the silent generation. What are we looking at as far as caregiver burnout and elder abuse?
That's a really great summary. And I just wanted to just provide some framework regarding what is caregiver stress and burnout. And I think that would definitely help us with this discussion, because a lot of people think it's not an actual condition for some reason or the other. And this definition I actually pulled from womenshealth.org. So if we take a look at caregiver stress is due to emotional, physical, and I want to add financial strain of caregiving. So these are caregivers that are on call. They may work part-time or full-time as a caregiver, right? And they're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of care of their aging, sick, or disabled family member or other loved one. So with that said, this leads to a lot of signs and symptoms that I think we as a community should talk about, so we can identify these signs and symptoms early. And also it leads to disease as well. So it puts the caregiver's health at risk. And I know specifically Miss Natasha has a lot of experience around the caregiver stress and burnout. So I just wanted to turn it over to her. Then I can come back and review some of the symptoms and also some of the diseases that can result.
Okay, thanks, Terry. And some of the experiences that I've had as a caregiver was most importantly being burned out. I worked the night shift. So when I got off of work, I actually was taking care of my mom. So it was extremely stressful, very sleep deprived. So sleep deprivation is huge. You don't get a lot of sleep because you're so busy trying to make sure that you're taking care of that person and utilizing that time to make sure that they have what they need when they need it. So I gained a lot of weight. So it also affects your weight. And I didn't have the high blood pressure or anything of that nature, but that does play a big part in it, where it actually elevates you because you're not getting the rest. That elevates your blood pressure too as well. So you got so many different aspects that come into play that can ultimately affect the caregiver, especially if they're doing it alone, as I was doing it alone. And to be able to get the sleep that you need. And I mean, as I explained to Terry one particular time, I had an experience on Lakeshore Drive. I was just driving, but I literally went to sleep and had no clue I had passed 47th Street, had no clue I had passed until the police officer pulled me over. And I was just pretty much stunned. I was like, oh, okay, he pulled me over. But I ultimately wanted to utilize that time to get my ticket to get some rest, oddly enough, because that's how exhausted I was. I was literally exhausted. I was functioning as in that state of mind. My process of trying to do different things was not basically to the full extent, because I was always having my mind on, I have to take care of mom. I got to be here for this. I got to be there for that. So it really plays a heavy part on you mentally, physically, and emotionally. I mean, I had bouts of depression as well. So a lot of aspects play into that, caring for a loved one, and it's extremely stressful for a caregiver. You want to be able to be there for your loved one, but you also got to take care of self, and that's huge.
What did he give you a ticket for?
He said I was speeding.
So you were sleeping and speeding.
Right.
See, yes, it had to slow you down.
It had to slow me down. And didn't even have any idea, and I drove the same route the next day, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I don't even remember passing this. I don't remember passing none of this. And all I could say was God was driving my car, because literally I could have hit the median. I could have hit another car. I didn't hit anybody, thankful to God. But I was just to the point where I really, like I said, when he pulled me over, I just felt that was an opportunity for me to get a nap in.
Wow. Well, Terry, now she said that. We're looking at sleep deprivation being high.
Yes.
I would also like
Yep.
to add to the list your dietary needs probably are not being met because you're eating on the run, so it sounds like a lot.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And these combination of situations are not good. So
Yep.
when we have caregiver stress, are we dealing with primarily family members of the patient, or are we dealing with outside caregivers, meaning someone that's hired?
Well, I think in most cases you're dealing with family members. We talked about elderly abuse and neglect on a segment we did last year, and I think this is a good tie-in to that. And over 90% of elders that are abused by loved ones, by their relatives, friends and family members. So I would say that it primarily falls on those that they know or caregivers within the family. And just looking at some symptoms, and Tasha actually touched on a few of them, feeling overwhelmed, feeling alone, isolated, deserted by others, sleeping too much or too little, gaining or losing a lot of weight, feeling tired most of the time, losing interest in activities, becoming easily irritated or angered, feeling worried or sad, and having headaches or body aches often. So again, I think that this is a larger conversation for our community, because if we're recognizing those caregivers that are in danger, like Miss Natasha, how we should approach them and try to offer some assistance or some support. And I think that your community actually stepped up and was able to do that for you at some point.
Yeah. Actually, I'm on a praise dance team at my church, and my praise dance leader just basically, because I was really refusing to ask for help. And that's another thing. I think as caregivers, we feel like nobody else can do what we're doing, so we don't necessarily ask, and we put all of that on our shoulders. And she just told them, "Don't even call her, just go to her house," and they did. But to have somebody step in like that and actually give you that help was huge, because it was really helpful for me. And I think that's a huge thing for caregivers, because they feel like nobody else may understand what they're going through, so they don't ask for help, and they end up putting all of this burden on themselves, which makes the job even more difficult for them, where it not only affects the person they're caring for, but it also affects them in every area.
Let's throw out something else that I know personally is an issue. When you have a family member who is
Mhm.
technically at that point a client, if you are
Mhm.
the caregiver,
Mhm.
who literally refuses to accept any help from someone other than, this is my baby Terry, and Terry's going to take care of me, and I don't want anybody else to touch me. What are you doing under those conditions?
I believe you have to really respect that person's wishes and to an extent. Not to say that you don't enlist help, help, but I was most of the time there when the caregiver was there. So I was there so I can supervise and see if she was doing what I needed her to do and taking care of those different things. So it kind of you still had that burden on your shoulders, but at least make that your loved one at least a little bit more comfortable, saying, okay, I have this person here, but the person that I'm comfortable with being here with me, Terry's here with me, so I'm good with that, even though this other person is here. A lot of times my mom was good, and a lot of times she wasn't good, so it was just depending on what was going on in that particular day, or she was having a moment. But the majority of the time I was there with that caregiver. It was very rare where I wasn't there, or if I did disappear for a little bit, it was for a short amount of time.
And I would recommend auditioning caregivers. I know of a lot of caregivers that actually they'll bring in like 3 to 5 caregivers just to see who's the best fit. And you'll find out who has the best work ethic, maybe who has the best chemistry, as far as it relates to your family. And then I think you go from there. So I kind of like Natasha's approach, but then also, auditioning about 3 to 5 as well.
Okay, because with it being personal, and I'm going to go back to something else you said as far as having family, but not necessarily having them help.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tell your family, listen, this is too much for me by myself? And if they don't respond, what are your options? Because there are going to be those family members that just don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
and there are going to be those family members that just aren't going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in a position where you know you can't handle any more than where you already are, and you need help, how do you even come to the family to say, listen, I have to tell you all this, we have to have this conversation?
Well, I can tell you what we did in the situation of my grandmother. And I know I shared this last year, but my grandmother passed from Alzheimer's as well. And we just had to bring everyone together. And actually, we enlisted her pastor, who was the only one that she trusted on the planet at that point. So we enlisted her pastor to help us with an intervention. And we brought together her daughter, her son, myself. So there were like 3 to 5 of us. We got together and we had the pastor actually lead a discussion, obviously to share his experience with parishioners that were obviously suffering from the disease, and then also providing us with some advice as well. So I think sometimes you may need to bring in a mediator. I guess it depends on the health of your family and how you communicate. But I know that kind of helped us get our footing and helped us figure out where we needed to go next. And if that meant bringing in additional resources from the community, like the Department of Aging or something like that, because someone was unable to help, then we were able to make those decisions at that time. So that's kind of how we approached it.
Yeah. And what I did was I realized who my mom was comfortable with. She was comfortable with my dad and she was comfortable with her mother. So those two people I enlisted. She had a situation where I was tired. I was like, I'm exhausted. Can you take her on for the day or what have you? And they would. I started really searching out for those people I knew who were genuinely going to help me. Those were the ones that I asked for help. Those who I knew weren't going to help out or anything, I really would try to ask for their help. I wanted to go to those who I knew would say, yes, okay, I got her. I'll take care of her, do whatever so you can get whatever rest you need. Those were the people that I, enlisted to help me do what it was that I had to do, as well as I still started going a little bit more into my own church family and asking for help there. And those people she received very well. So it just, like she said, if they're really comfortable with that person, even though I didn't do a whole interview process with them, but there were people I did bring in and sat with her with them and saw how she related to them. And if she were related well to them, I was like, okay, this person is somebody she relates to that I won't have a problem if I went and took a nap or went and took care of some things that I had to take care of, that I know she can stay with and she's comfortable with staying with them.
Yeah. Okay. And I know another thing, just to add, that Natasha did that I thought was ingenious, was she found an adult daycare. So even when there was no one available to sit with mom, you were able to drop mom off with some like individuals so she can socialize and interact with those
yes, she did.
Her age. And I don't know how you went about finding like an adult daycare service.
I actually went through the Department of Aging. They actually came out and they did an assessment. So what they do is they come out and do an assessment to see what that elder needs. And they did. She was real comfortable. She got comfortable with the ride services that would pick her up, the senior center that she went to, and she got comfortable. So gave me a little bit of a break finally, because I didn't have to do the running around. They would come pick her up and they would drop her back off. So I was really glad that she received them well. It took a minute to find the right center, of course, but to actually have that opportunity to find a center that she was comfortable with and the people really received her well. Even when we unfortunately had an incident where my mom went missing for 12 hours. They immediately seen her when they did the senior alert. It was called a silver alert. They immediately called me and was like, we'll have our drivers looking for her. So they were really concerned about her well-being, and they took extra measures even in the midst of me not asking to do what something that I never even expected them to do, but they did it anyway, and they offered that service, which was great.
And just listening to you say that is frightening to me, to think that someone could go missing. And a lot of times, again, we're so afraid to entrust our loved ones with someone for fear that something like that happens. So I'm glad that outcome was good. But when you noticed, and we're going to go back to the stress factor, when you notice the stress and the burnout in yourself, or if someone points it out, because you still may not see it because you're still wrapped up in your head thinking about what has to be done, what are we telling those caregivers to do? Because as a licensed massage therapist, Are you saying, hey, listen, you need to schedule to come in, not necessarily see me only because it's me, but to see a massage therapist to relax your physical and mental being? Because if you melt down and break down, then what?
Right.
So what are
And
we suggesting?
I'm suggesting for caregivers to, one, definitely take that time for themselves. It doesn't have to be with a massage therapist at that point in time. It doesn't have to be that you have to leave out the house. You can just find that little quiet space. Mine was my garage. To be perfectly honest, I found my garage. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was where I can just be still, be quiet, and regroup, and come back and do what I was doing. So just finding that the particular space that is calming for you to get yourself relaxed. You can have some essential oils. You can put it in a diffuser. It not only helps yourself, but it also helps the person you're caring for to calm them down. Some eucalyptus, some peppermint in a diffuser. Even if you just have one of those lamps, I believe, that you can put the oil on there and it
Yes.
lights up. That can permeate the entire room, and it can send a calming effect to both parties, the caregiver and the person being cared for. That way, you are still enlisting your own wellness at that point in time because it's helping you out. Get a multivitamin. Have a multivitamin that you take. All of these things don't require a whole lot of work. It's just something really simple that you can do. Baby steps take you a long way. And that's basically what my premise is trying to help the caregiver not to be feeling like, oh my God, I got to do this, I got to do that. But just this little sip of it, I can take my little packet, pour it in my water, shake it up. I can drink it. I have my energy. I got my essential nutrients. I got my vitamins in. I'm great. And you can do the same thing with the person you're caring for, and they can also be enlisted with that multivitamin. It don't necessarily have to be a pill. Most caregivers, most people who are dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's have a difficult time swallowing. So if you can get them something that's liquefied, that's even better. And have those different things that they can utilize. You can just massage your person and just massage their shoulder. Massage and touch is awesome. It actually relaxes a person. My mom loved when I brushed her hair. She loved when I rubbed her hands. She loved when I rubbed her feet. You can do the same thing. You can give yourself and the person you're caring for a foot, a bath. Just put the thing in there, put some bubbles in there, and put your feet in there. You'll be amazed how much difference it is because that person actually feel like they're being cared for. My mom loved when I did just those little things. And I'm just trying to show caregivers you don't have to do a whole lot. Just take a little bit of time, and you also caring for yourself as well as you're caring for that loved one.
Now, that's great. Oh my goodness, I think I'm gonna have to take one of your tips when I leave here. I got all relaxed thinking about the essential oils. No, I think that's great, Natasha. And I just wanted to add, of course, connect with friends. So this is part of taking a break for yourself. And then deal with your feelings. And our Peace website, which I recommend as a good resource. They've done a lot of research around caregiving, stress, and burnout. So they said, deal with your feelings, talk to your friends and family about your emotions and how this is really having an effect on your well-being. And then they also say, get organized, and then just say no. I kind of like that one too. So sometimes we want to take on everything, right? We want to be everything to everybody. So knowing when to say no. And that would be some tips that I would have to add to what Ms. Natasha said.
Well, my own personal tip is don't forget the small things that you used to enjoy. Like I love to read. No, I can't, if I'm in a caregiver position, read all day, but can I take out a half an hour to read?
Right.
Yes, because to have something that you still enjoy doing relieves some of that anxiety and some of that stress and gives you that time to just not be in that space of the caregiver role.
Yes.
So never forget that there are small things. Like it doesn't have to be anything huge. I have a friend that runs for relaxation. Okay, if you jog or run, take that half hour to go jog and run it off.
Right.
Like I said, I read, take a half an hour to read. If you bake, whatever it is. Some people, which I don't understand, but they tell me that washing dishes relaxes them. I cannot understand that, but that's their thing. Whatever it is, make that time, even if it's not a long amount of time, but make the time
Right.
because it will restore your mental balance.
Exactly.
And for endorphins, you do need to do some form of exercise to restore your mental and your physical balance.
Right.
Because
Yep.
if the caregiver gives out, what happens to the caregiver and the patient at that point?
Exactly.
Because more than likely, you know, like the people you can call to come in every now and then are not prepared to be full-time caregivers for two of you.
Right.
So you have to make sure you stay up so the both of you stay up.
Right.
Now we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to have H. Cortez's money moment, and then we're going to talk about assessing some facilities on the Straight No Chaser show on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeartRadio station.
Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's money moment. Tonight, we're going to talk about the 3 things that you need to do to create a better financial future. Number 1, you have to start practicing money. Start learning success habits, money principles, and start putting them into practice. We understand that no one has ever gotten good at anything without practicing. So why do we believe that we're going to get better at creating a better cash flow, get better at building wealth without practicing? Number 2, you have to come up with a plan and write it down. Yes, write your plan down. Get that plan out of your head and how you think you're going to manage your money. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Where there's a lot of technology, you have smartphones, you can use spreadsheets, whatever the case is, get that plan out and get it on paper. Number 3, review that plan on a regular basis. Sometimes it's regular as daily, definitely no more than weekly, and make sure that you are making the appropriate course corrections along the way. You see, when an airplane takes off from the airport, it does have its destination dialed in, but that pilot has to constantly make little course corrections and adjustments to get to that destination safely. You have to do the exact same thing with your financial picture. All right, you have your plan on paper and you review it weekly at the minimum, and make sure you're making those slight course corrections and adjustments so that you can be sure to get to your destination safely, right? Do these 3 things and you, my friend, will have a better financial future. Again, the 3 steps are: create a money practice day where you sit around the table, you look at financial strategies, and you figure out how to implement them in your life so you can practice them and get good at them. Take your plan for your money out of your head and put it on paper, right? So that you can see it, so that you can study it. Put it somewhere where the whole family can see it, right? And then once you have that plan on paper, you review it at least weekly so that you can make the appropriate course corrections that you need to make that will get you to your financial destination. I'm your boy, H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. You're checking out the Straight No Chaser show with my girl, Real Ray. And until I talk to you next time, get your money up. Peace.
And that was H. Cortez with today's money moment. And now we are back with our conversation, part 2, which is I have to put mama somewhere today. I have to put mama somewhere today. And I don't know what to do, where to go, how to assess. I don't know what to do. Because part 1 of our conversation was caregiver burnout. And sometimes you just can't do it. Or the person for whom you care for has a situation that it's no longer an option to keep him or her at home. So how do average lay people assess what's a good facility and what's a shaky facility? My personal, this is not professional opinion. If I smell urine, or if I smell that smell that is supposed to cover up urine and doesn't quite do it,
Exactly.
I'm already like, mm-mm. Now that, like I said, there's
Yeah, on
no data on that. That's just me. But if I smell it, and I know, like I said, I'm not saying that people are not going to urinate on themselves, but if it's like the air, no.
Yes.
Now, I said that's my unprofessional opinion, but go ahead to the professionals.
Well, I think first, and you just mentioned this, you should assess the overall health condition and needs of your loved one. And I say that because before we get into assessing nursing homes, because it's a huge financial burden to take on for the family. It costs an average of $6,235 per month for a semi-private room in a nursing home, and about $6,965 per month if you want a private room. You can save money on assisted living. It's about $3,293 per month. But I think the first thing is to really sit down, assess their condition, and what the needs are going to be before you actually start to search. And I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that.
I heard Earl go, when you said 6,000, he was like, what? I'm glad you brought that up, firstly, because I don't think people are prepared for the figures. I remember many years ago, there was a situation with a political figure here with the mother who had to be put in a home, and there was a whole bunch of controversy about she had land somewhere that the family had tried to, quit claim or get rid of or whatever, so that the state would not use that to pay for the funding for the home. Let's get an understanding. If your loved one has any assets, before they get any state assistance, those assets have to be liquidated to pay for their care. Is that accurate?
Yes, and then also too, and I was going to get into this next, when you start assessing, if they're depending on Medicare and Medicaid, you want to make sure that that facility is Medicare, Medicaid certified, because then Medicare, Medicaid will cover part of that expense as well. But yes, you're correct. And then also I would take a look at, CMS.gov to make sure that they're able to help you with the financing.
Wow.
Yep.
And if, depending on the person's mental and physical abilities, determines what type of facility they can go to? Are there limitations?
I know that there's skilled facilities. There are just rehabilitation facilities. So you're right. I think it really depends on what their condition is and if they need short-term or longer-term care. But I wanted to add, if you want to research which type of facility would be the best for your loved one, the CMS.gov, and actually, I think it connects you to Medicare.com or .gov. They actually have a tool where you can search for facilities within Illinois. So there are over 1,200 long-term care facilities serving more than 100,000 residents. So you can actually start there. I like this tool because it actually rates the nursing homes on a scale of 1 to 5, so 1-star to 5-star type of scale. And some of the things that they assess the nursing homes on are like health, inspections. They conduct quality of care, staff. So they come up with a cumulative score and they provide that score for you on their site. So I think that's a good resource to start to, number one, assess the type of facility. Number two, just to start to do some comparisons. The CMS conducts over 10,000 inspections a year. They also provide the results of those inspections on their website, so it's very transparent. So to Ms. Rhea's point, you can check there. So if there's a facility that you want to just research to see how they've been doing on inspections, or if they've been hit with any fines or anything like that, you can also research that information at cms.gov by way of medicare.gov as well.
Awesome. And the sniff test.
Yes.
And the sniff test.
And I was going to add too, and this is just some recommendations. There's no magic bullet when it comes to selecting a nursing home, and Natasha can probably add to that. I think it's a conversation that you need to have with your community. So just in doing research, when you decide that mom needs to be placed in a home, reach out to your pastor, your friends and family. If you have like a list of 3 to 5, more than likely someone has some experience with that facility, or they've done the sniff test or whatever that may be. So definitely reach out and ask for feedback. And then, of course, go on a tour. And if you do have some information you're concerned about that you've researched at cms.gov, like an inspection that didn't go well, and you're wondering if they remedied the problem, then those will be the kind of questions you can ask, obviously, when you're on site. So
when you check a facility, would you advise the first time? Because my thought is I'm going the first time, just off the street. I'm not calling for an appointment. I'm just going to walk in and see how this goes.
Right.
Because I don't want you to be prepared. I don't want to get the standard, everything is lovely and all this answer, because I want to see what's really happening when you're not looking for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my personal recommendation. And number 2, if you are in a situation that allows you a little flexibility of time, once you have decided on the home, don't go the same time every day. Mm-hmm. Or if you can have people that can rotate times, because my grandfather was in a home after he had a stroke, and my mother had already retired. So she was able to show up anytime, 24 hours a day. And she did. And she told me she noticed how much cleaner he was compared to some of the other patients, because they didn't know when she was coming in, and they knew that if he was uncomfortable in any form or fashion, there was going to be a situation.
Exactly. And I wanted to add to that. They say the best time to visit a nursing home is after 5 o'clock. That's when they are the least prepared, right, for you. That's probably when the staffing ratios are really low. So that's a true test of the quality of their service, is to show up after 5 o'clock. And to Ms. Raya's point, compare that to when you go before 5 o'clock. And obviously, if there's some consistency, great. Maybe put them on your final list of candidates. If not, then move on, because there's over 1,200 facilities. So you have a lot of options in Illinois.
And this is another one of my personal, not professional opinions. There are a whole lot of cameras via spyware out here.
Yes.
I don't care if it looks like a fake daisy, whatever. Have your family member's room under surveillance 24 hours a day. When my son was in daycare, I look at it as the same as when I look at my son's daycare. And this was in the 90s. There was a way to watch him online, except when he was in the washroom all day. And that was why, outside of liking the staff and all that I picked that facility, because I was able to watch him if I wanted to all day. Wow. And that was important to me, to make sure no one was doing anything to him. You should feel the same about your elderly relative, because they can't protect themselves just like a child can't protect themselves.
Right.
So someone needs to be able to watch all day, because as I shared with the two of you earlier, that videotape of the daughter-in-law trying to choke her mother-in-law out was so profoundly disturbing to me. And like I said, I don't know if the family saw some bruises that were unexplained, or the mother-in-law said something, but when the husband set up that video to watch her literally beating her the mother like she was someone on the street, and this was a Tyson Holyfield fight with Holyfield's hands behind his back tied, was horrific to me.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah, and we talked about that too. We were talking about this before the show, and in 2000, there was one study where they interviewed like 2,000 nursing home residents, and they reported back that 44%, had reported that they had been abused, and another 95% said that they had been neglected or had seen another resident neglected. So this is a very, very important discussion that we're having here as far as being able to monitor. I do know that there's legislation pending in various states in reference to whether cameras can be allowed in the nursing homes. So maybe we can have that conversation at a later date, because it may be illegal or legal for you to do that.
I'm gonna
So I
do-
don't know.
I'm gonna-
I don't know if we would recommend that at this point.
I'm going to
but-
do a Donald Trump. Get prepared now. I am not inciting any riots, but this is what I have to say about that. I don't
Right.
care what the law says. I don't care if the tape is admissible down the road. I need to know what's happening with my family member. And if that's a tape we can just use with Dee Dee and them later on, then that's what that is. But I'm going to tape. I don't care where my mother would be.
Right.
Thank God she is not in condition. As a matter of fact, she's out in the street more than I am. That she needs nursing home
Okay.
care. She's at the Croc Center right now while I'm trying to go home to go to bed. But seriously, you need to have a degree of comfort mentally for yourself.
Sure.
So that you're not strung out, stressed out, worried, because then it's not doing any good for you just because the person's gone if you're still in the same mental place.
True.
Yes, and going back to caregiver stress and burnout a moment, I think having a plan, having a schedule, and I think you mentioned this before the show, 3 to 5 family members or friends that can help you where you rotate it. For myself, my aunts checked on my grandmother in the nursing home Monday through Friday because I was working Monday through Friday. Then I took the weekend shifts. So that kind of gave me time to de-stress, right, and prepare myself, to be there with my grandmother, right? Because I didn't want her to see me emotional, right? Watching her deteriorate, obviously watching any loved one deteriorate is hard. So, but I think us having a schedule, us having a plan definitely helped from a caregiver stress perspective.
And Tasha, is there anything you would like to add?
Well, I know she was saying about having a plan in the schedule, but there are times where you don't necessarily get that opportunity to schedule and you don't have the family members participating to help you in that area. So you pretty much have to be a little bit clever in trying to create a schedule for yourself. And in those moments, I believe you have to really enlist somebody maybe outside of the family realm who can help you. And as I said before, who would genuinely help you, who we're going to be there for you and can assist. Like I had a lot of my church family help, and they stepped in to watch my mom if I had to go, grocery shopping, or if I had to do something with my daughter. They stepped in to do that for me, which was great because she was also receptive to them. So it also kind of have to be in a sense of creative in that area when you don't necessarily have your family members participating in helping you care for that loved one too.
And from my personal experience, you have to recognize your limitations.
Mm-hmm.
My mother does not handle illness well from a hangnail on up.
Okay.
And so
Wow.
her caring for my grandmother when she would go down to allegedly relieve my aunt was traumatic. Because my mother was stressed. You could hear her voice every time I would talk with her every day. It was getting a little higher, a little higher, and a little higher. And by the time she would come back to Chicago, her blood pressure would be sky high.
Oh,
Because and I'm talking about in 10 days, her blood pressure rose probably about 30 points.
wow.
She literally could not handle it. And that was okay. Her contribution typically was the financial contribution. They didn't have to worry about the fiscal needs being handled. But she could not honestly handle the physical side of it. So if you're that saying, hey, look, I'll put, $50 a week towards a housekeeper or something of that nature because I just don't have the time or I just can't handle that. Don't look at that as a slight. Look at that as honesty and appreciate that they're willing to do anything to step in. And as family members, be honest with yourself and say, hey, I just can't do any diapers, or I just can't handle watching Medea cry, or whatever it is, and then go into yourself and say, what can I do to help? Because there's something we can all contribute.
True.
And it's not ever too small. Don't leave your family member out there to carry the entire burden themselves, because the outcome for your loved one and your caregiving loved one is not going to be good.
Right.
Yes.
It's not.
And I just want to add to really good that you said that you to be clear about what part you can contribute, because ultimately if you're not communicating that with that particular person that is caring for the loved one, then they're more frustrated with you because they're expecting you to help or you're expecting you to do something, but you're not communicating about what area you can help in. Oh, I can just help them financially, or I can just help maybe on a Sunday at this time frame or whatever. Communication is key. And if everybody communicates where they can help at, or just give me the understanding or give that person the understanding that I can't see mom or I can't see dad or I can't see whomever in whatever particular state, but I can do this. If you need me to go to the store, I can do that for you. Set everybody has a realm where they can say, I can do this piece, so okay, I don't have to stress about that part.
I can, like you were mentioning about having your daughter.
Yeah.
I'll take your daughter, Monday through Friday from 3 to 6. I'll take her wherever,
Right.
Library, to eat, whatever. Just do something, because a lot of the complaints I hear are, nobody helped me.
Right.
Nobody helped me. And the other people are thinking, why I didn't know what else to do because I couldn't do what I think you needed to do. And like I said, that's the communication.
Yeah.
Listen, I can't do anything but read to Medea 1 hour a day. I will come and read whatever, but be fair so that everyone gets a break and everyone contributes, because one of the biggest problems in most communities now is a lack of community.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So we need to step up and help our family members.
Yes.
Well, and can I add one final
Sure.
point?
And then please give those websites again.
Okay, great. And how it affects the future generations, caregiver stress and burnout. And specifically, I was really, I was just really taken back a bit by Natasha's story, because she had a daughter she was raising at the time, and her daughter almost had to step up and take care of mom, who was taking care of mom. So I think we have to take a step back as a community and see how this is affecting our children when we don't have the support that we need, right?
Right.
And stepping in to help out so that they can be children, right?
Ooh, if I had to ask my son for help on that level, I don't know how well that would go. He would be stressed out.
Yeah, my
And,
daughter,
and I'm sure she was.
She was 14. So, for her to step up and do some of the things that she was doing. And at the time, it was a moment where she had her grades drop. Me being so caught up in caring for my mom, her grandmother, I didn't realize how that was affecting her.
Yes.
And we did go to a caregiver meeting, and she just flowed with everything. And I was like, oh, okay. You get so caught up being a caregiver that you forget how it's affecting those in your arena right there in your immediate family too. But, she did an awesome job. I have to commend my daughter. She did an awesome job with helping me.
She's a sweetheart. She's a
And
sweetheart.
that's a lot.
Yes.
So, Terry, give us those websites for people again.
Yes. And again, the recommendation is to start with the Medicare.gov site. That's where they have the actual elder locator service. So that would be CMS.gov or Medicare.gov. Also, there's an elder locator via the Administration on Aging. The National Institute on Aging has some resources out there, familycaregivers.org. And some other services out there, but those are just some that come to mind where you can start to at least start. Oh, and I mentioned AARP, I'm sorry, as another resource if you want additional tools and information regarding caregiver stress and burnout.
Well, I want to thank you, Natasha and Terry, for being guests on the Straight No Chaser show. We've had a serious conversation that we need to continue. So the next time we want to talk about preparing for the end, because we're all going to meet the end, meaning tell me what we were talking about earlier, the power of attorney.
Yep, power of attorney and life insurance. Yep.
And living will as well.
Living wills and following people's wishes.
Right.
Yep.
So in a few months, we'll have that conversation again. So
And
thank you again. Yes, ma'am.
And can I just add one thing? And just in case for caregivers, if any of this information really resonated with them, I'm willing to offer some 5 tips for them to help as well with their caregiving needs and helping them as a caregiver to incorporate that while they're doing that. And they can reach out to me via my email. It's nywhite@prodigy.net. That's nywhite@prodigy.net. or you can reach out to me. The first 10 people that give it to me and send me an email in the next 24 hours, I will definitely send them that information for them to help them out.
Awesome. And
Thank
how do
you.
they reach you to deal with care visits?
Care visits, you can reach out to me directly at Terry, Teri, and that's Macarath, M as in Mary, C as in cat, E as in Edward, L as in Larry, R as in rabbit, A as in apple, T as in Tom, H as in Harry, at carevisits.com.
And that's K.
Care visits with AK. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. And with that, we have ended another important segment of the Straight No Chaser show. Thank you all for viewing. And as always, dedicate yourselves to the truth, no matter the cost. This is Rhea Ray Harris, wishing everyone a peaceful, positive, and pleasant evening. Be safe out there.
It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice. Empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk with no chaser. 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 She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.